The rain hammered against the glass like angry fingers that night. Inside a mansion perched on the edge of the city, a storm far greater was brewing, one that no one outside could hear. "Pack your things and leave," Vanessa said coldly, her voice echoing through the marble hall. Across from her stood the man who had raised her, not by blood, but by choice. Thomas Avery, a retired schoolteacher, a man with hands worn from decades of work, and a heart that once had more love for this girl than life itself. He looked at her, disbelief clouding his tired eyes. "Vanessa, you can't mean that." But she did. Her arms crossed, her diamond bracelet glinting under the chandelier light. She nodded toward the door. "I'm done living like this. You've held me back long enough. I deserve better, real family, real money." Thomas's lips trembled. He had sold his old car just to pay her college tuition, worked nights in a janitor's uniform so she could walk in silk dresses. And now, the same girl who once called him. Dad stood there, throwing him out of the very house he bought for her. He slowly folded the photograph in his hand, the one of her 6th birthday. A tiny girl with cake on her face, sitting on his shoulders, laughing like the world couldn't touch her. He put it in his pocket, then nodded softly. "If that's what you want, child, I'll go." The door closed behind him, quietly, painfully. Vanessa didn't even look back. But as the old man stepped into the rain, the wind carried his whisper into the night. "One day, you'll understand what real worth means." What Vanessa didn't know was that the man she just threw out, the man she mocked for being poor, wasn't just a retired janitor. Hidden deep within his worn leather briefcase were documents, bank seals, and an untouched account worth $5 million. A secret inheritance he'd planned to give her on her 25th birthday. But now, the story was about to change. Because the storm that began with greed was about to end with truth. The morning after Thomas Avery left, the mansion felt different, too quiet, too still. For years, Vanessa had dreamed of this. Freedom, luxury, control. Now she had it. But the silence that echoed through those marble halls felt less like peace and more like guilt. She tried to ignore it. New clothes, parties, new people. Every photo she posted online got thousands of likes. Every fake smile won her more attention. But every night, when the makeup came off and the mirror stared back, she saw something she didn't recognize anymore. Not the proud daughter, not the grateful girl, just a woman haunted by a man who had walked away without anger, only love. Weeks turned into months. She hadn't heard from Thomas. Since that night, his phone number was disconnected. His old apartment empty. The man who once waited outside her school gates every day had vanished from the world. Then one morning, a letter arrived. No return address, no name, just her own written in a trembling hand. She almost threw it away. But something about that handwriting froze her. Inside, a single piece of paper, one line. "You'll understand when the rain returns." No signature, no clue. Just that one haunting sentence. That same afternoon, a lawyer in a dark suit knocked on her door. He introduced himself as Mr. Collins, representative of the Avery estate. "Miss Vanessa Avery?" "Yes," she said, confused. "I'm here regarding the execution of Thomas Avery's will." Her world stopped. Her knees felt weak. What do you mean?" Mr. Collins looked down. "I'm sorry. Mr. Avery passed away 3 weeks ago." For a moment, the air left her lungs. The chandelier above seemed to blur, her reflection splitting in the marble floor below. Thomas Avery, gone? He had died quietly in a small seaside town. Heart failure, they said. He was buried next to a wildflower field overlooking the ocean. The same ocean he once promised to take her to when she was little. Vanessa's hands shook as Mr. Collins handed her a small, weathered briefcase. "This was left in my care for you. Mr. Avery wanted you to have it on your 25th birthday." Her voice cracked. Why now?" "Because he changed the date," Mr. Collins replied softly. "He said, she needs it when her heart breaks, not when she turns older." Vanessa opened the briefcase. Inside were stacks of letters, all addressed to her, each one written in his handwriting, some from when she was a child, some recent, and at the very bottom, a sealed envelope marked "Final Gift." Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a key, and a document, title to a house by the sea. At the bottom of the page, a short note. If you're reading this, I'm gone, but remember, I never left without love. This home was meant for us both. Now it's yours. Inside the drawer of the old desk, you'll find everything you ever thought I didn't have. Tears blurred her vision as she read the last words, written shakily in fading ink. I was never poor, Vanessa. I was only rich in ways you didn't see. Her breath caught, and in that instant, the walls around her luxury mansion no longer felt like home. They felt like a cage built on shame. That night, she drove through the same storm she had once sent him into. The rain pounded her windshield just like it had that night. Each drop a memory, each flash of lightning, his face. When she finally reached the seaside cottage, dawn was breaking, and there, framed by wildflowers and the whisper of waves, stood the wooden cross with his name, Thomas Avery. A man too humble to boast, too kind to hate, and too patient to forget. The house by the sea was nothing like the mansion she came from. No chandeliers, no marble floors, just creaking wooden steps, the smell of salt in the air, and the sound of waves brushing against the cliffs below. Vanessa stepped inside, hesitant, almost afraid. The floorboards whispered under her heels as if the house itself remembered every footprint Thomas had ever left. Dust floated in the morning light streaming. Through the cracked windows, kettle sat cold on the stove. A single armchair faced the ocean, his favorite spot, she guessed. On the table beside it, a pair of reading glasses rested atop a half-finished crossword. She ran her fingers over it, trembling. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Dad." The word came out broken, foreign, like something she hadn't said in years. For the first time since he'd left, she let herself cry. Not the soft, staged tears she shed for sympathy, but the kind that claw their way from your chest and leave you shaking. As she wiped her face, she noticed a wooden desk in the corner, old, scratched, yet sturdy, the one from his classroom, perhaps, the one he always refused to sell. She opened the top drawer. Inside were envelopes, neatly stacked, labeled with dates. Each one had her name. The first one was dated June 14th, 2010, her 10th birthday. She opened it. "You said you didn't want toys that year. You wanted something real, so I gave you a savings bond instead. You cried because you thought it was just paper. I told you, one day, you'd understand." Her hands shook. Real gifts don't sparkle. She opened another. They grow. And another. Each one carried a piece of him. His handwriting, his thoughts, his love frozen in time. One letter said, "When you graduate, I'll clap the loudest, even if I'm in the back row." Another, "If life ever makes you choose between pride and kindness, choose kindness. It'll hurt less later." By the time she reached the final envelope, tears had already soaked the edges of the paper. This one was marked, "For when you finally." "See?" She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a handwritten note and a photograph. The photo showed her as a little girl, asleep on his shoulder, chocolate smeared on her face, his eyes in that picture, gentle, proud, endlessly tired, pierced through the years like sunlight through rain. The letter read, "Vanessa, I hid my money not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted you to learn what it couldn't buy. Every dollar I saved, I thought about what kind of person you'd become. I saw a world teaching you to measure love by the size of a diamond, not by the depth of sacrifice. I prayed I'd be wrong, but love doesn't end when faith does. So I left you everything anyway, not to make you rich, but to give you a chance to start over." She turned the page and found a document, clipped beneath it, a bank statement. Her eyes widened. Wasn't just $5 million, it was $7.3 million, locked in an account under her name. Her knees gave out. She sank to the floor, clutching the paper to her chest as sobs tore through her. The man she had thrown out for being worthless had died protecting her future. Lightning flashed outside. Through the glass, she saw the storm swelling, waves crashing against the rocks below, rain falling just like that night she'd sent him away. She stepped outside, drenched in seconds, the letter still clutched in her hand. Wind whipped her hair, but she didn't care. She screamed into the storm, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. Her voice disappeared into the thunder, but in her heart, she felt something stir. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of it. When the rain softened, she saw it, a small wooden bench overlooking the sea. Carved into the backrest with a pocket knife's trembling hand were 3 words, "You are enough." She fell to her knees before it. For the first time in her adult life, Vanessa Avery felt small, and yet more human than she'd ever been. Over the next few days, she stayed in that cottage. She read every letter. She walked the beaches her father loved, and slowly, she began to understand that real wealth wasn't in marble or gold, but in moments you can never buy back. She donated her mansion to a children's charity, the same kind of kids her father once taught in public schools. She sold her jewelry, her luxury cars, and used the funds to rebuild the housing program Thomas once volunteered for. At the inauguration ceremony, she stood before the crowd, no makeup, no designer clothes, just simplicity. Her voice trembled, but her heart was steady. My father taught me something I didn't understand until I lost him. He said, "Money can fill your hands, but only love can fill your life." I used to think I needed more of the first. Turns out, I just needed more of the second. People clapped, some cried. In the back row, an old janitor from Thomas's school wiped his eyes, and as Vanessa looked up at the sky, a single ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, falling gently across her face. She smiled. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe it was him. The following spring, the sea outside Thomas Avery's old cottage was calm again. No storms, no thunder, just the soft rhythm of waves brushing the shore, the same rhythm that had once lulled him to sleep. Vanessa visited every Sunday now. She would bring fresh flowers, wild daisies, his favorite, and place them on the bench that bore the words he'd carved with his own hands. "You are enough." Sometimes she'd sit there for hours, the letter he left her folded neatly in her pocket, reading it again and again until the words blurred with tears. Other times, she'd simply close her eyes, let the sea breeze wash over her, and whisper the stories she wished she'd told him when he was alive. There was a peace in those moments, a peace she had never known in her glass mansion or diamond halls. Here, everything was real. The wind didn't flatter, the sea didn't judge, and the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like forgiveness. Months passed. The world still moved fast. Cities lit up. Fortunes rose and fell. But Vanessa moved slower now. She'd learned to listen, to people, to her conscience, to the faint echoes of her father's voice in the spaces between her thoughts. She reopened Thomas's old school library, naming it after him. Children came there every day, some hungry, some broken, some forgotten. And she found herself sitting among them, reading the same books he once read to her as a child. One afternoon, a little girl tugged at her sleeve. "Miss Vanessa," she said softly. "How do you get rich?" Vanessa smiled. She thought for a moment, then knelt to meet the girl's eyes. "You get rich," she said, "when you have someone to love, and someone who loves you back. Everything else is just numbers," the girl giggled, not because she understood, but because she liked how warm the words sounded. Vanessa smiled too, but her eyes shimmered with something deeper, something that only comes from losing everything and finding what truly matters. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Vanessa walked along the beach one last time before heading home. The sea reflected the fiery orange sky, and for a fleeting second, it looked as though heaven itself had opened across the water. She stopped and looked upward. "Dad," she whispered, "I hope you're proud." A soft gust of wind brushed against her cheek, gentle, almost deliberate, like a hand wiping away her tears. And in that moment she knew. He was there. Not gone, just different. Years later, when people spoke of Vanessa Avery, they didn't call her the heiress or the billionaire's daughter. They called her the teacher's child, the woman who turned her father's lessons into a legacy that outlived both of them. And somewhere in that little seaside town, when the rain fell hard against the windows and thunder rolled across the cliffs, people swore they could still hear it. A man's calm, steady voice whispering into the storm. One day, you'll understand what real worth means. They said the words echoed faintly through the waves. But those who had truly loved someone, those who had lost, repented, and found peace again, they didn't just hear it. They felt it. Because some stories don't end when the last page turns. They live on, in every heart that dares to change, in every child that learns to forgive, and in every quiet moment where love finally wins.